Welcome in, everybody, to a special episode of the At the Pylon podcast, coming to you live from the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas. I am currently here covering Super Bowl Media Week. We will be talking all about that, as well as, of course, the Patriots. We have a top 5 big board for the Pats coming up for the 2024 NFL Draft. Chandler and I will talk through our big board and discuss who we think the Pats should be targeting when it comes time for the 2024 NFL Draft. Let's dive right into it. Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the At the Pylon podcast. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. Chandler, we meet in a very obscure scenario this time. I'm literally in my hotel lobby. There's a casino behind me in Vegas. It is, 2 a.m. there in the depths of UMass Amherst, where you're coming to me from?
Yes.
How are you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling great. I was thinking that the fact that I won $30 at trivia tonight was going to be the coolest thing that either of us had done this week, but I guess clearly I'm wrong. I guess you're having some kind of, life-changing experience or something like that.
Bro, not to undervalue the $30 in trivia, bro. I mean, I
Hey.
don't expect nothing less from Chandler Betts in a trivia game. Come on, you gotta
Oh yeah.
get those answers. But regardless, we have a pretty interesting episode planned out for everybody today. We're going to be talking about, obviously, the experience that I'm undergoing here through the Super Bowl, but we're obviously going to be drawing information back to the Pats. We got a top 5 big board that Chandler and I agreed on for the Pats heading into the 2024 NFL Draft. Why don't we start with the big board itself, Chandler? We'll start on a Patriots note, and then we'll move to the extravagance that I've experienced in these past 4 days so far towards the end of the episode. But you and I, basically, we talked this morning. Our big boards, because we were each going to make one, were extremely similar.
Yeah.
So we kind of merged on one kind of focal thought. Why don't you walk us through what we decided, and then you can kind of go through player by player and break it down.
So I actually have a little different of a list than you. It's only slightly different. It's the same 5 players, just in a different order. Let me pull up yours. I have yours here. Do you want to go your 5, my 5, your 4, your 4, my 4?
Yeah. Let me just pull up my list because
cool.
I can't even find it.
I have your list.
I got it. Okay.
So let's start with your number 5.
For my number 5, I had to go with Joe Alt. I thought he was the best lineman out of the draft. I think if you're the Patriots, you got to have a lineman on your top 5, just considering the fact that the O-line was so weak this year. You need to find some dynamic pieces to fix that. Personally, I wouldn't go with Joe Alt in the first round, especially if you're picking from number 3, unless something ridiculous happens. I would not be going with Joe Alt, but regardless, you still got to rank him up there just because of his sheer talent and what he would bring to that offensive line. So I slotted him in at 5. I just couldn't pass up on his talent.
Yeah, so I think that he's an excellent player. I actually put, for my number 5, I put Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU, who I have covered on the podcast. Very talented receiver, will almost certainly be the second wide receiver off the board in a draft without an abnormal human in Marvin Harrison Jr. Neighbors would be a consensus number 1 wide receiver, an excellent player. However, he is 5th on my list, and we have only 2 teams ahead of us. There's no reason we should be picking him, unless we're trading back, of course.
Yeah, and speaking of Neighbors, Chandler, I actually went with him at my number 4 slot. He's been rising in the ranks a lot this past week or so in terms of draft capital. Some have even been interchanging him and Marvin Harrison Jr. For the top wide receiver position in the draft.
Crazy.
Yeah, I do not agree with that either.
Fatigue, we see that all the time. We see that every so often. We saw that with Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. We see this every year where people are like, oh, he's been so good for so long, I'm tired of it. No, that's not how it works. He's still a generational wide receiver who's going to walk into the league as almost certainly a top 10, minimum top 20 wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty, I guess, obscure to say that he would be ranked above Marvin Harrison Jr., but regardless, I still view Neighbors as a very valuable piece in this draft.
Absolutely.
Certainly won't see him on a Patriots draft board unless if we trade back, like you said. So, I mean, at least hopefully not, or else that'd be a a ridiculous start to the Mayo era here in New
Yeah.
England. I mean, certainly couldn't be as bad as some of the other wide receivers that we picked. Neighbors is still going to be a good player, but regardless, if you're at number 3, you should not be picking Malik Neighbors at that slot. So I put him at the number 4 spot. Who'd you have at number 4, Chandler?
So you put my number 5 at your number 4. I put your number 5 at my number 4. Joe Alt is my number 4. I think that he is a better fit for the Patriots simply because of the talent in the wide receiver department in free agency. However, there's also a case that this is an incredibly strong and an increasingly strong tackle draft, which is going to be something that's really good for us. I think that we'll be able to find a starter, maybe even as late as the third round, a day one left tackle starter. There'll be a couple names that I'll throw out. Somebody that I just started watching, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. Left tackle out of South Dakota State. Huge guy, really athletic. Currently probably has like a fourth round grade. I think that'll go up to like a third. He was in the Shrine Bowl. Very talented player. Love me a small school player, for better or for worse. But Joe Alt, clear cut number one tackle, has really surpassed Fashanu in my opinion. And we're going to see as this grows with the later tackle options being J.C. Latham out of Alabama and Oregon State tackle, who it's way too early or late, depending on what you want to think for me to remember his name right now. Taluia Fuanga or something like that.
I'll believe whatever you say, bro. I'm
Something
not
like
getting
that.
that name either. But regardless, I think you make a good point bringing up Joe Alt, as well as the other talent behind him, in the offensive lineman category, just because of the fact that, uh, considering the sheer lack of research that I've done on the draft, I mean, give me a break because it's still early, but regardless, I have not been on top of it at all. I've been hoping that the Patriots hit on a couple offensive linemen in the later parts of the draft, just because of the fact that we've proven we can pull later in the draft on offensive linemen. Considering that Grow is still around, hopefully he keeps that shtick going. But regardless, the depth in this draft at the lineman positions, whether it's tackle, guard, center, whatever it may be, there's a good amount of depth in each of those slots. So I think that waiting later in the draft wouldn't be a bad decision if you're the Patriots. But regardless, Joe Alt's still a very valuable player. I can see why you put him at 4. And with that, I'll move to who I put at 3. That would be Marvin Harrison Jr., studded wide receiver in this NFL draft. Obviously, he's been gaining a lot of traction in terms of his talents, his value in this draft. At points throughout the offseason, he's even been viewed as a possible number 1 overall pick to the Chicago Bears. That obviously looks a little bit less likely now, as it seems like they're going to be tracking towards Caleb Williams. But there was a real possibility back a couple weeks ago where people really thought the Bears were going to be keeping Justin Fields. They decided to pivot to more of a quarterback selective role in the draft. But there was a real possibility that they were not only going to keep Fields, but keep their number 1 overall pick to pick Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 1, which would have been shocking from a draft standpoint. But that just goes to show how talented of a wide receiver he is. And considering how things may unfold in the draft, he could very possibly be a Patriot if we elect to not go quarterback round 1 based off how those top 2 picks above us go, as we'll find out here in a couple minutes as to how we kind of think that the quarterback play is going to play out in the draft. But who'd you have at number 3, Chandler?
Before I get to that, I would like to give myself some credit. Taliesin Fuaga is his name. I was 98% close.
That was close enough for me,
I'll
bro.
I'll so give that to myself. To your point about Marvin Harrison Jr., he's not my number 3. My number 3 is actually Jaden Daniels. I think that is going to. I don't think it's going to change, but I think that there's a world where he actually isn't on the board for the Patriots to select. A lot of talk has been going around that a quarterback, one of the top quarterbacks, is going to slide in the draft, and they don't know who. They don't know who. I think it's going to be someone we'll talk about later. And I won't spoil that because there is, 3 slots left and 4 top players. So Jaden Daniels sitting at my number 3. I have been very confident and very consistent about Jaden Daniels being my quarterback three. I think that a lot of people are really liking him because he's physical, he's toolsy, he's 6'4", 210 off the top of my head. People are comparing him to Lamar. He could be that. He could be excellent. I think that he doesn't make the pro style throws that we've seen other quarterbacks make. Whether that matters as much, kind of to be determined. Something that I love about him, and as I've talked about, because I believe that I have covered him,
Yep.
he's gone from a lesser program to a better program, from Arizona State to LSU, increasing his level of difficulty and has improved in every single season that he's played. He's done it with excellent players, but he himself is an excellent player, still sitting at my number three list. And this is my cutoff. I think this is my line here. Take one or two, if not trade.
Whoa.
I think that's where I'm standing right now.
Well, let's see what your 1 and 2 are. I can only imagine what they may be, as we already know that it's similar to mine, and I don't know what mine are. But regardless, at number 2, Chandler, I have Jaden Daniels. Solely because of the fact that I don't disagree with anything that you said. I think Daniels is a pretty solid quarterback 3 in this draft. You could argue that he may slip close to 2, but I really don't think he's surpassing Drake May, regardless of what a few analysts out there have been saying. I really forget who was it. Coward who was pushing that, or
Cowher's been pushing a lot of things, including a Justin Jefferson to New England Patriots trade.
that is a whole nother story that you
There's
brought up
hey,
to me this
we'll
morning.
talk. We have two things I'd like to talk about. That's one of them. But
Yeah,
let's finish this first. Yeah.
yeah, we'll stay on track for now. But regardless, there's been circulations as to whether or not Jaden Daniels would be considered the number 2 quarterback in the draft. While I think it may be a little bit closer than others may think with Drake May, I still think he's in that number 3 slot pretty comfortably. But regardless, I'm putting the need for quarterback, and look how much I've turned since the start of the year. The need for quarterback is just so high on the Patriots' regard right now, considering the overhaul that you're doing amongst the system, that you just gotta value Jaden Daniels more than a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., even though the talent difference is there. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a much better wide receiver than Jaden Daniels is a quarterback. So, although that distinction is there, you gotta just value the quarterback more if you're the Patriots. And while it sucks to say at points of the season where we really thought Mac was going to stick around and make it out as kind of the savior to this Patriots team, it's just not working out. So they're gonna have to
We
go with the quarterback.
we probably the
We,
most
yeah,
fun saying. Mother me. We.
you. Oh, no, me. What the hell am
Yeah, I
I
was gonna say
saying?
you. I
Jesus
didn't think
Christ.
that. Don't put that
Me.
on me.
I thought that, not you. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see, Chandler. Who's your number 2? I think I know who it is.
It's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Okay.
He is the most sure thing in this entire draft. I would be ecstatic if we picked him simply because when you have an option like that, you always take him. A lot of people talk about this online. I don't like this comparison because these are nowhere near the same player. But a lot of people, and I will actually pull up the draft so I don't just talk out of my head. But a lot of people are comparing this and conceptually to another LSU quarterback drafted very early, being Jamarcus Russell. Now, that's not saying that he's going to be Jamarcus Russell, but the two players drafted after Jamarcus Russell, Calvin Johnson and Joe Thomas, both first ballot Hall of Famer, arguably top 3 in their positions of all time, kind of caliber players. You don't want to be sitting in the situation where you take Jaden Daniels, who again, I'm not saying is going to be Jamarcus Russell. I think that he's a very talented player. I think he will end up being an above average NFL quarterback, probably in the tier of Kirk Cousins, not at all similar style players, but that kind of echelon, that fringe elite, not really elite, but some people like to say he is. That's where I think he'll probably end up sitting. Marvin Harrison Jr. has the potential to be Calvin Johnson. He has the potential to be Randy Moss. He has the potential to be Jerry Rice. We'll talk about that. Yeah, so Marvin Harrison, number 2. I would be thrilled if we picked him. I'd be a little disappointed if we took Jaden Daniels, but I'll live.
Yeah, well, I agree with your decision there, Chandler. It's tough to really pass up on the value behind Marvin Harrison Jr. I just do it for the sole purpose of like you got to get a quarterback so bad. And I think
Sure.
that reflects in both of our number 1 choices here on our big boards. I'll say mine first, but I can almost guarantee that yours is the same. That's Drake May. He's got to go first. You're a Patriots official in charge of this, whoever the hell this draft pick may be. You have to value Drake May at the top of that board. And I think a lot of this, at least from my point, Chandler, stems from the fact that Caleb Williams is a lock for one. But based off what you were saying earlier about there's a quarterback slipping down the ranks, if you say that's Williams, like that's gonna just like jaw drop me. So I'm excited to hear what that whole story is about. But regardless, if May is there, you gotta take him, of course. But considering that Williams may drop, I mean, like if he drops to 3, I'd take him. So that's another thing to consider. But regardless, you gotta value the quarterback the most. Like I said before, that's why I have May slotted into my number one spot on the big board. And with that, Chandler, I'll roll the drum roll for you. Who'd you put at number one?
I wish I could give you a jaw drop moment, but the quarterback that I have been alluding to potentially falling and being available for the Patriots is Drake May. And I think that's just so silly because, again, I hate making comparisons to three completely different quarterbacks, but the archetypes are there. You have your quarterback one, who's very clearly considered the number one quarterback in Caleb Williams. You have your quarterback two, who I personally think 2:06 on a Thursday. It's Thursday. That I personally think is better than Caleb Williams at this very moment. That is subject to change, but I have had that opinion for the past 3 or 4 months. And then you have your tools, the athletic quarterback, who's going to go a couple picks later. Does that remind you of any recent drafts, Nick?
It does, but I am like, wait, say it again. The clear cut number one.
The clear cut number one, the
Yep.
number two, who everyone's saying isn't as good as they actually are, partially because of the school that they went to, and then the very tools, the athletic quarterback that goes a couple picks later.
2020.
Should remind you of last year. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and
Yes.
Anthony
Yeah, you're right.
Richardson.
You're right.
It's
You're right.
it's eerily similar in the sense that
Well, 2020 is kind of
everyone,
similar, not
it
as
is
similar
kind
as
of
that, but
similar,
like, yeah.
but that had more quarterbacks. So
I
this
feel
one
like
is,
that's the yeah, I feel like that's the trend every year. There's
yeah,
always,
well,
I mean, the cycles of people saying like, even now they've gotten it down to a science in terms of conspiracy theory of like the one is always the bust, two ends up the best, and then three is like that toss up as to like I don't know what's gonna happen. I
well,
mean,
then we
and
go back to
that's clear cut out to what you said for last year,
2021. Excuse me.
as Bryce Young was at least seeming like a bust so
Not his
far.
fault. I will also get on
Yeah,
that.
no, it's not
It's
his
not his
fault,
fault.
but it is definitely looking that way.
I mean,
CJ
he's
Stroud,
looking
pick
good.
number
Looking
two.
good, yeah.
He's balling out.
Yep.
Nominated for rookie of the year. And
Will win
my
Rookie of the Year.
my 5 hour sleep brain is blanking on who was quarterback three.
Anthony Richardson,
Oh
Colts.
yeah, Richardson. Yep. And yeah, he's panning out to be good, very athletic, but nobody knows because he got hurt. So
Yes. So we considered, we made the conscious decision to leave Caleb Williams off both of our boards because we're fairly confident he's going to go one, whether that be to the Bears or another team. If I'm Ryan Poles, it's interesting because you want to capitalize on the pseudo moneyball aspect of football and having a quarterback tied to a cheap-ish contract for 5 years because you get four plus the team option, the fifth-year first-round option, and you're going to have to pay Justin Fields after next year, I believe it is.
yep,
But it's so tough because if I'm Ryan Poles, I look at Fields and how he ended the season and think, that's a good enough quarterback for me to continue with him. Let me, trade back, get, I don't know, 2 first-round picks from the Patriots or from somebody, get three from some team that's trying to trade up from more than three up to one, and then get, I don't know, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Brock Bowers. You could get a upcoming draft. And to pick a quarterback after you have one that can still pan out to be a very talented quarterback in the correct system, I think it's very interesting. One more thing, actually, that I completely forgot to mention because I got too focused on my similar situations tirade. One of the reasons I think Drake May might fall. Recent offensive coordinator hiring for the Commanders is Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury was the former coach for Kyler Murray in Arizona. He was
Yep.
also Patrick Mahomes' coach at Texas Tech. And he was last year's offensive quality assistant, I think was his technical role for USC with Caleb Williams. The style of game that he likes to call is a lot more similar to the style that Jaden Daniels plays rather than Drake May. I think that this was a very intentional hire, and I think that this could result, I'm not saying it will, could result in Jaden Daniels ending up in Washington.
That would be a ridiculous scenario indeed, Chandler. One that I would be happy with if I was the
Oh yeah.
Patriots. Love to see Drake May.
Okay,
I
well,
think
so
he's a more
we'll just draft Joe Alt. It'll be fine.
there we go. Yeah. Joe Alt, number 3. This is a new era of Patriots, right, guys?
Oh
No,
yeah.
it's if that happens, I mean, I'm done, bro. Like, I don't know what to say. That will be a scary day. But regardless, before we move on to some of the other things happening around the league and around Vegas at this time, you brought up the very pivotal story, Chandler, that Justin Jefferson has been considering. I guess the Vikings have been considering moving him. Which to me this morning when you told me that, or afternoon in your case, um, it was not super surprising to me because on one
Really?
hand, when you face the Vikings, right, you got Kirk Cousins out the door, most likely.
Yeah.
You've got a ticking time bomb on a lot of aspects within your organization. And then you have Justin Jefferson, who's really like that last, like, superstar piece that you got that could propel you into contender status, I guess. So the fact that you would be like, let's just toss Jefferson at his peak value. We don't have to dish out millions to keep him around. And then, we go from there in terms of reestablishing ourselves and kind of starting on a clean slate. Not the worst idea in the world. Now, Justin Jefferson getting traded is something that you wouldn't really imagine in any scenario just because of how talented he is. Giving up somebody as prestigious and effective as a guy like Jefferson would be pretty crazy on the front of a lot of NFL teams. And even the deal that you pitched earlier, Chandler, which I'll have you walk through here, I think Coward was the one who made it. So kudos, I guess, to me to accidentally bring that up earlier. But um, while it seems like an okay deal on paper, it's just nowhere near, I guess, the consideration that you and I would have for a guy like Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, so the actual trade that was proposed started off from a report from Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, picked up by Colin Coward when he pitched. Doing this off the top of my head, I couldn't pull it up. Third pick from the Patriots for Justin Jefferson, pick 11, and a 2025 first round pick. Um, I don't know who the GM of the Vikings is. That is a fireable offense. And then if Elliot Groh, who is sorry, not Elliot Wolf, who is just today been confirmed as to being in charge of the personnel department via Ian Rappaport, which again we will talk about right after because I have some opinions on that, both good and bad. Um, if he were to say no to that, if that was something on the table, I would want his head in a spike. That is an absurd trade. If you have Justin Jefferson, you don't trade Justin Jefferson because he's, I don't know, the best wide receiver in football. I think pretty comfortably as well. I think that that would be an absurd thing to do, especially because they've already invested in bringing in TJ Hawkinson from the Lions as an elite top 3 tight end in the league, in my opinion, probably 3. Um, and then you have um, wow, Jordan Addison, out of
Yeah.
Pitt and USC as the other wide receiver. You spend some money this offseason. Imagine if they brought in like, I don't know, Derrick Henry, just off the top of my head, or if they draft a running back. There aren't a whole lot of top end ones, but we've seen that late round running backs can absolutely get the job done. Imagine if they just invest some capital in the offensive line. They already have Darisaw, who's pretty good. If they can just bring in Baker Mayfield, I don't know,
You're
something
gonna have
like
to pay him a bag though. It's looking like upwards of $30 million at this rate.
might be worth it. I think that he's very good. I've always been a Baker Mayfield fan. But regardless of who they get in that position, if they can get some sort of talent, which of course is absolutely an ask, there's to really propel that caliber or that team to the next level, you have to have that top tier quarterback. And we've seen that Kirk Cousins can kind of do it. They had I mean, we can't forget that they did go what 13-4
Yeah.
last year. A lot of one score games, a lot of single. I think what was it? 10 of their 13 wins or something. This is entirely off the top of my head. 10 out of the 13 wins they had were single digit wins, I believe. Um, some kind of crazy stat like that. There was a lot of flip of the coin games for them, but we've seen that it can be done with a high level player, and that was before they had gotten TJ Hawkinson. I think that this is the perfect position to get somebody, just one piece, and that one piece is probably a quarterback. I don't think that you trade Justin Jefferson to get that quarterback. That's
Yeah.
silly.
I have to agree with you, Chandler. As much as I'd love to see Jefferson in a Patriots uniform, I think it's pretty unlikely that something like that would happen. But
But what a
like you
statement
said,
of intent! What a statement of intent if Wolf could pull that off. He's like, oh, by
yes,
the way,
he's
thanks, Bill, for leaving. By the way, I'm gonna bring in Justin Jefferson. I'm
yeah,
going
and
I'm going to do what you did with Randy Moss, but just like I don't know, how old was Randy Moss when we got him? 28, probably.
yeah,
Jefferson's what, like 24?
yep.
We have the best wide receiver in the NFL for the
Younger
next,
Randy
I don't
Moss.
know, 9 years, 10
Yeah,
years. Yeah. Here you go. Now insert quarterback. If you suck, it's your fault now. We have the
literally.
weapon.
And yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up Elliott Wolf quickly. Ian Rappaport announced today that he would be taking on the player personnel position for the Patriots to be in charge of their roster. 41 years old, former Browns assistant general manager.
Yeah.
A lot of personnel coming in from the Browns, Chandler. I noticed like
Yes.
one after the other. QB's coach, offensive coordinator. Now we got I guess our general manager, quote unquote, who will be from that Browns front office and coaching staff. How do you feel about the hire quickly?
Yeah, so Wolf was actually within the organization for the past year. I think maybe a couple years before that.
Yeah,
The Browns organization, after they drafted, or I guess the season right before they drafted Myles Garrett, has been run really well, in my opinion. Their general manager, who is slipping my brain, Nick, if you could look it up,
I'll look it up.
he was with the Colts. He was their assistant GM. He was like a Harvard grad, um, really talented player evaluator.
Andrew Berry.
Andrew Barry, thank you very much. Jesus. Was actually very important in me starting to understand the trade draft pick value. He has some interesting thoughts about that that I've found. And that organization is run very well in terms of finding assets and bringing them in. They, of course, had a big blunder with, in my opinion, a big blunder with the Deshaun Watson big trade and then subsequent all the bad things, and then also just wasting all of your money on that.
And
Part
picks
of
and
the
draft capital. Like why?
Yeah, exactly. And
L trade.
they actually talking about also talking about Alex Van Pelt, the new offensive coordinator. They fired him, despite he had a fairly good season, especially considering their quarterback goes down. Their second quarterback stinks. They bring in a 39-year-old Joe Flacco, and then he lights it up. I believe they fired him because they want somebody who is specifically tailored to Deshaun Watson. Whether that's good or bad, we will see. But with a completely depleted offense, no Nick Chubb after the first game, no real starting quarterback between weeks 6 to 14, still making the playoffs and frankly being a favorite for a playoff game. Very impressive stuff. I'm very excited for the Alex Van Pelt era. Whether that be maybe clip that, maybe that'll be a bad take. Um, but to go back to the actual scouting department and the rest of the front office, Matt Groh coming back, and he's going to be focused on college scouting. So he'll be, I guess, the head of draft scouting,
Great.
along with Alonzo Highsmith, excuse me, who was the general manager for University of Miami football. What a general manager does in college, don't ask me, I don't know. But it's another opinion from the outside, and apparently he's very well respected. And that's pretty much all I can say about that. The more voices from the outside we can get, though, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and with that, Chandler puts kind of a cherry on the Patriots recap from this past week and a half. Obviously, this week's episode coming to our viewers a little bit late. Usually, we're airing episodes on Monday. The whole shtick with Monday was I was stuck at opening night for the Super Bowl. For those who don't know, I am at the Super Bowl with Emerson covering media week leading up to the game. Um, just a ridiculous experience so far. Like every aspect of this trip so far has been surreal. And just as I am at opening day, front row interviewing Travis Kelce, front row interviewing Brock Purdy, front row interviewing Debo Samuel. The list goes on and on of people I talked to that night, which was insane. Like they're looking into your eyes, answering your question. And
Yeah.
like it's like a bloodbath trying to get their attention. So like when they actually start looking at you and everybody else shuts up, you're like, oh my God, like I gotta like actually finish my question now. So like with Debo, for example, I was like, like I didn't even I didn't even know what to say at
Yeah.
some point because I wasn't ready for it. But it's just been a surreal experience, and every day it keeps getting better here from Vegas. As yesterday we had a huge media party, which was awesome. I got early access to the Super Bowl experience, which is an NFL theme park. That's where our Instagram update came from today. I was running through obstacles and stuff in a suit, so that was pretty funny. And today, as I thought again wouldn't be able to up from previous days, I got to interview Jerry Rice after he presented the Lombardi Trophy for the first time ever in Vegas history here in Las Vegas. Um, there was a media rush, it was called. So we all literally just after the press conference was over, or not, the presentation was over, we all just booked it to Rice. And I was saying in the moment, thank God that God made me 5'6", because I was literally just able to sneak under everybody. I ended up right in front of Jerry Rice. I had his basically every single soundbite he had said from every question was on my tape, as well as I got to ask him a question myself,
Yeah.
which was just a ridiculous experience. So, not to mention, on the first day, I ran into the man who broke that same report about the Patriots front office position,
Eye to
Ian
eye. Really,
Rappaport.
really contextualize for me how tall he actually is.
Like, yeah, we're literally the same height, which
Yeah.
is which is crazy. So yeah, that was quite the
Love rap
experience.
sheet.
Uh,
I was
and
the
we
whole
saw him,
time.
bro. We saw him, and I was like, "Is that Ian Rappaport?" Because I was with another kid here, Jackson. And he's like, "I think it is." Like, he's like, "We can't go over and ask for a picture, bro." Like, that's like, I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, you're right." So then we go, we order a $55 pizza because Vegas money is expensive. $55 for a cheese pizza, bro. I would have had a heart attack if I was paying for it, because
Was there a grill
luckily
in it?
Emerson covers all the food, but like if
Oh
that was
well,
coming out of my pocket, I would have died.
yeah.
But regardless, as we're after we order the pizza, he's like, man, like I really want to go meet him. I'm like, bro, like let's just do it. Like you only live once. Like, what's he gonna say? Like, So we go over. I went, excuse me, Mr. Rappaport. I hate to bother you. We're student journalists from Emerson. He was really nice. Not a fan of the Boston Globe though, obviously, as he was
Okay,
a
yeah.
former Herald employee. Obviously, that's where he got his start covering the Pats. Jackson, my colleague, works at the Globe. He brought that up. Rappaport did not take kindly to it, but it was still a very fun and unforgettable experience. And that's what this week has been so far. Tomorrow, I'm actually on the red carpet for the NFL honors. So
Woo!
everybody at home, cue up your DVRs. Maybe you'll see me on the red carpet in my blue suit. But yeah, I mean, it's just been surreal. Chandler, I wish you were here with me, because
Hey,
you
I'll
would
slip
know
vicariously through you.
you would know a lot of these like aspects that I don't know, like rookie classes, like stats, like every reporter out there, like you'd know the names way
Oh, if
better
I
than I
could
do.
pick John Lynch's brain, oh my God, that would be so cool.
Like
Did you?
I know faces really well. Like Tom Kern was on my flight coming here. Um, and I wasn't really 100% certain that it was him until after we got off the plane, because I was just like, I couldn't make the name to face connection. So But regardless, I mean, I still figured it out eventually. But I bet there's a bunch of other famous people, like literally, who have walked behind me throughout this episode that I just haven't
Probably.
recognized. So having somebody like you there, I wish you were here, bro. But
Hey, don't I do too, but this is your life right now. I'm very happy to live vicariously through you. Very proud of all the work you're doing.
appreciate it, bro. But yeah, I guess that'll do it for the At the Pylon podcast this episode. Make sure to tune in next week. I will be jet lagged as hell on Monday, but we will be doing it at the normal time. I swear we are back to our every Monday schedule.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know what the episode is. We have a whole plan drafted out, but I have
Oh,
no
we
clue
do.
what it
Let
is.
me
But we're at less than a minute right now, so we'll
I
save it
think
as
it's
a
a mock draft. I
surprise.
think it's a mock draft. I'm saying it's a
Okay,
mock
mock draft. I better get to work.
maybe.
Regardless, thank you everybody for watching. Alongside Chandler Betts, my name is Nick Antonakas. We'll see you on Monday. Peace out from
Bill
Las
Belichick
Vegas.
moments. Top Bill Belichick moments.
Yes, top Bill Belichick's moments.
Next
See you
week.
from next week. I'll enjoy the rest of my time here in Vegas. Good night, everybody.